Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Erica, and if you guys are new to my channel, I make a lot of writer-related content. And this week I decided to do something a little tiny bit different, something that I've never done on this channel, and it's one of those all about my so videos. So this video is obviously, as the title says, it's all about my work in progress. I don't really have a working title yet, so I'm just gonna be WIP for now. But however, I do consider this novel one of my main priorities. This is something that I'm really trying to push out before I graduate college and really get done, at least at the end of graduation. So I'm just gonna be talking about that today. I guess before I can get into it, I do want to give just a tiny bit of a background as to how I came about this idea and how I kind of, created it or whatever. And it's really a complicated story. I guess it's not super complicated, but this idea has been in my head for literally years. So I actually had the idea for this novel back in like 2010/2009, and that was when I was about 12-13 years old. And it just came to me when I was literally listening. I believe I was listening to an Eminem song. I don't know if I mentioned that in a tag I did, but I was listening to an Eminem song and I was watching SNL. I was probably waiting for the commercials to be over or whatever, and I just came up with this idea and I just wrote it down, and it kind of multiplied as that. Back in the day, I used to be very open about my writing. I don't know what happened, but as the time went on, I kind of felt a little secluded with my writing, so that's a whole other topic. I can make a whole separate video talking about that because that is just, it is what it is. But back then, when I was younger, I actually wrote some of this story and I had people reading it. Some of my best friends actually read the story and gave me their opinion on it, and we just kind of brainstorming ideas, and they really liked it. They thought that it was a pretty interesting idea, and I was like, this is interesting. However, since then, I kind of changed the concept a tad bit and kind of, just change up certain things of the story that I think could be improved in some way or another. So back then, my main protagonist was going to be from the girl's perspective, and it's still up in the air now. However, back then I was set. And it was going to be the girl's perspective, and her name was Alex, and I was super confident about it. I had everything down. However, now that I've kind of developed the plan more, I'm changing the perspective and I'm changing the mindset. And so, yeah, throughout the years, just a lot of changes have been happening to the story, and it's not as what it was, if that makes any sense. When I first created it, it was pretty much about a girl who was in foster care and has been in foster care her whole entire life. She has never met her birth parents or anything like that. She grew up in the system, and at this point in my story, she was 13, so they assumed, it was kind of insinuated that she wasn't going to be getting out of the system anytime soon. I also like to mention that in my story, she was a very quiet and timid girl. She didn't really have many friends. She didn't really talk. She was very kept to herself, if you will, and she really doesn't go against the rules. That's super out of her character. However, something happens, in her foster house, and I'm not gonna directly explain what happens, but it's a really sticky and bad situation, and it causes her so much stress, and she's so terrified that she runs away. Obviously, a child is missing and it's a big deal, and they can't find her. However, she has a secret that they don't know about, even though they kind of know what her secret is. They just don't think that she knows it. And so basically, back then when I first created this idea, the whole story was about her finding the secret that she had. She wanted to kind of go to that secret. Obviously, it was a person. She wanted to kind of go to that person and figure things out and just get away from the life that she had. And that was her whole journey. I made that idea back in 2009/10. I was young, and as a 21-year-old woman now, my opinions and my thoughts on that story have changed drastically. I did a lot more editing. I've actually written a bunch for this story. I have pages of character profiles. I have everything that I basically need. I know these characters so well now, so it's quite different. So like I said, back then I was set on having the main character, the main protagonist, the girl, and make it, first person narration. However, now I'm not so sure if that's what I want to do. I am actually looking more into having another person be the main character and actually switching the point of view to third person limited or third person omniscient. So I'm not quite sure I'm going to go with that. But if that's the case, it would be from the perspective of my other character, who is a 27-year-old man, so it definitely is kind of a flip-flop. Since I've kind of revisited this idea throughout the years, I do have a set plot point that I think is very interesting. And so basically, in my new and improved version, The girl's name is not Alex, her name is actually Zoe, and Zoe is a 13-year-old girl. She's biracial, she's a little chubby, she's very underdeveloped for her age, at least in today's society standards, because we all see those young teenage girls with like super beat faces and just, they look above, they look beyond their age. She doesn't. She looks like the very stereotypical young little girl. She might even pass for a 12-year-old when she's actually 14. However, she is extraordinarily smart. She's very kind-hearted. She's very soft-spoken. However, I did keep that element of, her being timid and shy, but she is very observant and she is very cooperative. So she doesn't like starting trouble. She's not one of those people that seek out trouble, which is contrary to the other male character, to the male character in my story who used to do that. He had that past. She didn't. She's a very, well-behaved girl. So it's the same kind of concept that something happens and she eventually finds herself in a sticky situation where she, runs away. However, there is a twist. This time I'm not quite sure. This is something that's still in a work process with me. I'm not sure if I want to go down either or road. There are two ways that I could take this story that would impact it significantly, but I'm not sure. Right now, I just know that she's in trouble and she ran away. My original draft, my original, brainstorming for the new and approved version of the story was that she ran away and her social worker contacted somebody that could be important. And that somebody that was important was our male character. Now, I was actually thinking about doing a whole video on this character, and I might still do that. Maybe just make a video about how I developed him, because he is probably the most developed character that I've ever created. I really know him. I have done workshops on him. I wrote short stories on him. He's probably one of my favorite characters to actually write and kind of tell his story. So his name is Adler Shaw. He's 27 years old. He's from Chicago, and he's this very wealthy, well-off young man. He got a promotion at his business at a very young age. People are very envious. However, he is brilliant. He went to U Chicago, which is one of the best universities to go to in the country. He has many degrees. He's very respectable. He's very charismatic. People just like him, and he knows how to get stuff done. He's very, hands-on, and, his productivity levels are just off the charts, and people just, all in all, love him. However, he is a very quiet person as well. He's very reserved. He likes his privacy. He kind of has a tad bit of OCD. If you go to his apartment, it's very bland. There's not much color. He likes a lot of gray tones and, silvers and darks. But that's just who he is. He has to put so much into his job, so much communication into his job, that when he goes home, he likes a little bit of a break. And this character in particular is kind of an asshole, I'm not gonna lie to you. He is not the friendliest person you would want to meet on the street, if you know what I mean. But deep down, he has his reasons, just like we all do, and he has his own little history. But basically, throughout the story, Adler is living his life. He's going to work. Like I said, he just landed this big promotion, and, the life he's always wanted has finally become alive, and it's actually happening. And this is important because Adler himself was also in the foster system as a child. However, he didn't have the same life as Zoe. He was adopted at the age of 15, which is still quite older. However, he found really, loving parents that really cared about him and pushed him and helped him grow as a person. They put him through college. They really wanted him to succeed. And he wanted to succeed. He wanted to get out of that life of being in the foster system. And as he was in the foster system when he was younger, he wasn't the best person. He wasn't, behaving. He wasn't getting good grades. He would barely go to school. He was just a very troubled kid. So obviously when he's adopted, he really does a whole 360 on his life, and it's important to him to really make these goals that he sets for himself. He has really high standards, and every time he reaches that standard, he wants more. That's just part of his personality. So the story takes place, so sorry about that. I know I'm rambling a lot about this character, but it's really important to understand who he is and his motivations. In the beginning of the story, he's basically just living his life. He just got this promotion. He also just got engaged. The engagement is a whole different problem that I've actually wrote a short story on, which I will share eventually, or might even make a video about. However, his life is coming together. while Zoe's life, on the other hand, seems to be falling apart. I don't know how obvious it is, but obviously we learn eventually that Zoe and Adler are actually biologically related. They're actually brother and sister. They have different fathers. Zoe is biracial. She's Mexican and Caucasian, and Adler is just Caucasian. However, they've never met each other. They don't even know that they exist because they never even met their parents. Adler has a very faint memory of his mom, but it's not too much to hold on to. So that's pretty much that. Also, I know this video is going to be very long, so bear with me. I hope you got a snack or something because this is just a very long explanation. So the only reason why they ever, cross paths is because there's something going on with Zoe, like I said, but it's to the point where she's so terrified that she can't go home, so she runs away. And what ends up happening is her social worker is so desperate to find her because the cops haven't found her yet, that she reaches out to Adler, who is still in the system. His, files are still in the system. They still can track him down. Even though he's been adopted for years, they still kept all of that information. By the way, just a side note, I'm still doing research on adoption laws and certain things in Illinois. So take this with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to say that everything I'm saying is factual because it might not be, but it's fiction. So in my case right now, this is what's happening. So his records are still on file. So what her social worker does is she contacts him and she's just like, hi, I know you don't know me, but my name is yada, yada, yada. He ends up knowing her. He remembers everybody. That's just how it is because, he's been through that. He's, met up with this social worker or whatever the case may be. He knows who she is and he knows what agency she works for. And at this point, he's freaking out because he's wondering why they're calling him, He doesn't want anything to do with that anymore. That's not who he is anymore. And to top it all off, his fiance doesn't even know that about him. She doesn't know that he was put up for adoption. She doesn't really know who Adler is as a person. She just knows what he's become and not who he was or where he's from. So he's very timid and kind of quiet about it. He doesn't want, anyone to know about this. And then the social worker tells him why she's actually calling. She's like, I'm sorry to be an inconvenience, but we have a missing child. Her name is Zoe Moran. Have you seen her? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, Zoe Moran, I don't know who Zoe Moran is. This is the thought of the social worker. She assumed that, he actually met his sister and, he knew of his sister, but he didn't because the age gap is so large, you know what I mean? It's over 10 years. He's at least, I think he's 13 years older than her. So there wouldn't be, she would only have been 2 years old in the foster system and he wouldn't have known about it, like nobody told him about that. So she kind of spills the beans in a not so appropriate way that he has a sister and he's kind of freaking out, He's like, what? No, I don't have a sister. I don't even know my mother. I don't know my father. This is impossible. And then she's just like, sir, you do have a sister. This is what happened to her. And I have not given the mother a name yet. But let's just pretend that the mother has a name. The social worker is like, sir, you in fact do have a sister. She was dropped off back in this day at this time. And he was just thinking about it. He was like, wait a second, I was really young. I was still there. His mind was just blown. And when he heard his biological mother's name, he knew that that was her. And what they were describing was what happened to him as well. So what happened was that Adler and his sister Zoe were both born in East Indiana, which is kind of a little way away from Chicago. However, his parents, or the biological, mother and father, mostly just mother, dropped him off in Chicago, just like she did with Zoe. And that's why he kind of realizes, holy crap, that could be a thing. However, this isn't the biggest part of the story. She actually does end up being found and she's safe and everything's taken care of. She's thankfully removed from that house. She's in a better place. However, you guys know the fact still stands that he still has a sister that's in the foster system and she's only 13 years old. Also, if I said she's 14, she's not. I actually meant that she's only 13. Sorry if I confused anybody. But Zoe is 13 years old. And so the whole story essentially is kind of him deciding what he's going to do about it. Because, he has this social worker whom he actually has known through his past, who has helped him as a younger, has helped him get out of juvie and just deal with his, his own problems. He has her in his ear telling him to basically do the right thing, which would be help his sister, take her in. He's financially stable. He has no children. He has a good job. He could take care of her. He could more than just take care of her. He has enough money at this point of his life where, you know, he could provide her with a good education. You know, he could do anything for her, basically. And they're like, she's just trying to get him to basically think about, you know, caring for her. However, she's also playing devil's advocate. She's just like, yes, she's your sister. Yes, this is not a good situation. You have the means to take care of her, and you can give her a good life, but that would put the life that you have or you've built up for yourself on hold. And you really have to make that decision. And, you know, that's pretty much the whole idea of the story, is him making this decision. Like, what should I do? Should I help my sister even though I've never met her? I didn't know about her since just recently. I really only spoken to her a couple of times, and I would be sacrificing everything. I would lose everything, because the only reason why Adler has anything is because of, you know, obviously his, you know, brilliance, but also mostly his networking and his connections. He has very important connections through his fiance and, you know, through her father. So if they find out about this other person that they didn't even know existed, that could jeopardize everything. And he's just, it's all in his head. He's like, I don't want another me, you know, I don't want another me growing up in the foster system without any help, but I also got here and it took me so long to get here, and I don't want to lose it. It's just his journey on figuring out what is the morally right thing to do, what will make him feel like he's done something, you know, good in his life, because he's always felt like everything he's done was either shitty or just because he had to. He never felt like he really wanted to do anything. And another thing about Adler is that he doesn't really understand how to express his emotion or even kind of comprehend his emotions, if that makes any sense. He never really understood what love was. He never really understood what it meant to care about somebody. He's felt it through his parents, but he's never felt it externally through other people. He definitely doesn't feel it that way towards his fiance. That's a whole other thing, like I said. But, you know, now he has this other life that is a part of him, that's related to him, that eventually he starts caring about and actually wants to make sure she's safe. Because, you know, throughout the book, they spend time together, and, like, he realizes that she is important to him. Adler invites Zoe out to do things with him, and he wants to get to know her. And he doesn't really understand why. He feels like maybe this is the wrong thing to do, but there's a part of him that knows that it's the right thing to do. He knows that he wants to know his sister, you know? That was a lot of no's. Sorry about that. Another thing to note is that everything that you think can go wrong in this story does. Like, possibly his fiance finding out about her. Yeah. Things becoming chaotic. Yeah. It's part of his life, and it's something that he can't escape. But ultimately, there's a decision to make, and that's pretty much what the book is about. Obviously, Zoe really is a big part of this story. She does play off as a kind of metaphoric and symbolic and emotional mirror for Adler. However, she really is important. I am giving her a big part. She does have her own emotions, her feelings. You do get to really learn who Zoe is and what she's been through as a person as well. You really get to see how the way she was raised and grew up was completely opposite of Adler. Even in the foster system, Adler was, you know, running the streets. He just wasn't a good kid, you know. She was this very quiet kid. However, she was very abused and even kind of experiencing a little PTSD. Another thing about Zoe is that she is medicated because she does have anxiety, and she does have these things that she has to deal with, and medication really does help her. But like I said, ultimately it is just about choosing what the right thing to do is, and about, you know, what he should do as a person to kind of change the lives of both of them. So yeah, guys, as I said, this is a work in progress. There is probably going to be a lot added or deleted from this story. I am halfway through it, so we're getting there. Like I said, this is my story that I've been working on for years, and something that I would love to push and get done by the time I graduate college. That is a dream of mine. Fingers crossed. I hope you guys like this all about my work in progress. Please comment down below letting me know what you think about it. If you have any suggestions about my work in progress, I would love to hear them, guys. Like, I need suggestions. I love getting people's feedback. Even if you have feedback to give me, or criticism, or whatever the case may be, I want to read it down below, so please leave me some criticism. Again, I want to apologize for not uploading yesterday and you're seeing this video tomorrow, which will be Friday, so technically I want to apologize for not uploading 2 days ago. But I am going to be sticking to my schedule. And with that being said, I would love for you guys to subscribe to my channel. I do post Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, excluding this week. I'm sorry. Please give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys on Monday. Bye-bye.